with how this site operates. For the project overview, this has been identified in several documents as a transit priority area. Obviously, it's consistent. The apartment homes, yeah. Transit.
It's the transient project.
It is a transit.
Sorry.
There we go. It'll stop and then it will go again. So I'm going to start and then stop. So basically, it's consistent with the general plan housing element to have multifamily here, and it is complementary to the smart and sustainable corridors in the Oceanside Boulevard master plan. Again, the project is a proposed mixed-use transit priority project located right here across the station. The project site is 18.9 acres, so the project site does go up the hill there for the property, but our developable area that we're focusing on, we're not touching the hillside, is 12.89, and it goes from the toe of Loma Alta Creek, where we'll be putting South Oceanside Boulevard through to connect, to alleviate some traffic concerns. From here to the toe of the slope, the site is zoned currently to have 29 units to the acre. We're delivering well below that. We are also providing 22% of the site as open space, which is also above the city requirement. In the city Oceanside zoning ordinance, mixed use is permitted within the zone, and it is consistent with section 4105 of the zoning ordinance.
I have a question. Exactly.
I'm gonna go through all that, and I just ask that if you let me get through this, we can have the whole dialogue. So I appreciate your wanting to talk right now with me, but I need to get through this, and then we can have it. And I'll bring my team up to have a better understanding. So through multiple public outreach events over the past decades, this site has been identified as a great location for housing. In 2007, the vision of the Oceanside Boulevard corridor, this site was listed as Site B of the special places, and it offers an opportunity for new development that's at that point in time next to the new transit station. And it would take great advantage of that transit station and provide a mix of uses. So the mixed use with housing as well as the commercial space that we're proposing, and pedestrian friendly. And we'll go over the pedestrian improvements that we're making. In the current general plan update on Onward Oceanside, when the city planner, Russ Cunningham, addressed the community in the chat about where housing should go, many of the people identified this location as where housing should go. And we have the comments from the community up here about where the housing should go. And one of them right here is, I put my pin on all that open space next to the Crouch Street Sprinter Station. So people were identifying this as a housing site, as you all probably are aware. Some of you may have actually participated in that meeting. Did anybody here participate in the general plan update?
I'm curious, is that the community that you're talking about that's attending here that was invited to this?
The overall community of the general plan update was sent to the entire community of Oceanside.
By mail?
When was that?
Snail mail?
Back in January.
A larger area than this.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So that's why I'm having this community meeting with you all. Usually I do a 500-foot radius notification. And working with the city, we opened it up to 1,500.
Was that through email or mail?
Yeah,
Which one?
The general meeting that was.
I was not the one responsible for that. So however the city notified everybody.
Who? The city themselves?
The city, the
notified?
city's general plan update. Yes.
Who's responsible for that?
The city.
communication?
The city.
Who at the city though? The city manager?
The planning department, I would believe.
Planning department?
Yeah. Up until this meeting today, we've had extensive city and agency and community engagement. We've had meetings with the city. We've had meetings with NCTD. We've had communication with the Army Corps of Engineers. We attended the general plan update and the comments from that general plan update about this site and housing throughout the community were there. We've had meetings with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife because of Loma Alta Creek. And we'll have today's meeting. We'll take that feedback and we'll synthesize it into the larger report that we have a meeting with the city on. All the emails you guys have been sending, we're taking those in and we've been responding to a bunch of them. So continue to send those emails. If you didn't get a notification card, We have the notification cards in the back that have the email address on it. So to be consistent, we want to keep collecting it all at that email address so we can show that to the city in a report. We plan on having additional meetings in the future to meet with you all, hopefully a smaller group so we can have a dialogue on this. But then also when we take the results of this meeting to the city, we'll discuss if there's a larger open meeting for the group, the community. It'd be tough to have it on site when in the evening, because this is just not the best place to have a public meeting on site in the dark with activities going around, so that will probably be a virtual meeting. Concerns of the community are the same ones we all have: traffic and circulation. We've done both a traffic analysis for VMT and LOS, and we even dialed it up a little bit more on how people are going to school and how people, the commercial space, and we found a less than significant impact to the transit, the traffic, through using the Sandag model that we're required to use.
Is that available for us to see that traffic?
If you send me an email, we'll get to you guys.
I've requested the traffic report.
Excuse me?
I have requested.
To that email address?
To the city.
The city has not shared that with us.
To the planning department.
Planning department has
Stephanie Cervantes and Russ Cunningham.
Stephanie has not provided that request to us, so we'll follow up with her.
So it should be directed to you then?
There's an email address right there in the back where we would collect all
If
these
we want
comments.
a copy of the traffic study, we send you an email?
I will work with the city on how that gets distributed. I'm sorry that Russ and Stephanie haven't gotten back to you. We are also connecting the completion of South Oceanside Boulevard here. That will alleviate some of the congestion from the existing community as well as our development.
Would you repeat that? You mean you're going to create another street?
So
parallel?
this right here, this street, because I know you and I talked about it, this street right here really isn't a street. This street is an easement that this property has granted North County Transit as a driveway.
You mean
This one with the yellow line on it and everything. So we will be expanding this street.
When you say this street, do you mean Crouch?
No, this street right here that you guys just
The
walked
easement.
on right now.
You're calling it an easement, so you're expanding the
Yeah,
easement.
yeah, I'm trying to be clear. So this asphalt out here with the double yellow line on it is a driveway for North County Transit that the site has granted an easement to them. We will be expanding this asphalt section to be a full road that will be called South Oceanside Boulevard, as it is already called, and South Oceanside Boulevard in this section will connect all the way down to the existing South Oceanside Boulevard where the white fence is.
You mean you're going to combine the two streets?
No, ma'am. This street right here
Uh-huh.
will just go all the way through.
So what is it going to be called?
South Oceanside Boulevard. South Oceanside Boulevard is there. It will come all the way to Crouch. On this side of the train tracks, the road will continue.
Will there be a signal
I
down
have a
here?
question.
A traffic signal?
Quick.
Do any of you, the three of you, live in this area?
One of our team members does live in this area, and I have family friends that live in that area. I live here in North County, just down in Encinitas. So I will come back around and have a better dialogue
No,
with you guys.
but it
I-
matters to me that if you live in this area,
I understand.
what you are going to endure. That's
we
issue.
will come back and have a dialogue on that, but I need to get through this presentation, and then we'll have the discussion on that, because I need to get through some of the other points we have. We're widening this. We're putting a wider sidewalk
Let
here.
him talk, let him talk.
Please, let
We're
him
putting a wider sidewalk on this side to take the pedestrian traffic coming off the transit station to connect all the way to the commercial zone there. We're adding a sidewalk up Crouch Street for the residents up there to come down to the commercial space and or the transit center, as well as for the students that will be residing here to get up to the school. Parking is one of the higher issues. Basically, we're working out the city on a transit-oriented development parking analysis, and we will comply with that analysis that we agree to with the city. We have on-site parking management because it'll be a 24/7 service here with our management staff for the apartment homes. We've increased the circulation with the flow-throughs of this street here and up.
Can you tell me what the transit parking analysis, what that means?
That's something we're still working with the city on. As a transit-oriented development, because you're accessing two major transit lines, the parking doesn't have to be as high. But we're working with the city on what that analysis is. City of San Diego, Zero. We are not doing that. Our residents like parking. We will provide plenty of parking for our residents.
But it is underparked.
Not right now, no, ma'am.
Yes, it is.
We will have
Oh, yeah.
our
How many
intern.
parking spots?
478. So inside, we will have a community bike share program with our community. We will provide residents with the transit package on how to access this. And for our commercial space, we will be having inside the leases the incentive for them to provide transit pass discounts for those employees to reduce that. For the safety improvements, I know a lot of you are from up here and there's safety issues. We know that. We've come by the site on a monthly basis to check on it. Personal note, Fraser Farms is the best grocery store in North County. So you'll have over 295 eyes on the street. We'll be activating South Oceanside Boulevard here, so there'll be more visibility for what's going on. We'll be activating the Crouch Street station with the residents here in the commercial space, so there'll be more activity because all those cars are pretty much ours. And then currently the uses down here, there's no after hours visibility because of their office spaces and things like that. So we'll have after hours visibility onto the project, so that will increase the safety in the area. Again, I said 24/7 presence on site with management and community supervisor. We're putting fencing along the project in order to stop the transition of people up the hill, as well as up the city's sewer easement, which is a pretty good walkway. We'll have the appropriate lighting. I have to say appropriate lighting because we're under a dark sky ordinance for the lighting because of Palomar Observatory, but they're also negotiating with what the OPD wants for lighting. So we're going back and forth with them on that. We will have security cameras. We're looking at reinvigorating the sense of community with the new school children attending that campus, which is, I guess, a declining enrollment for the two campuses. And what you're missing here is a sense of community. So this will bring a sense of community down here for this area, for South Oceanside Boulevard. It won't be the sense of community that's up here, but it'll be a sense of community down here, which will bring more investment into here and increase the security. I know that a lot of you live in the area, and one of our team members lives in the area too. I know that we've had numerous fires here on the slope. We're keeping an eye on it. We know that our project will decrease the security issues that we have here.
Does
Almost.
Weiss still own this property, or
Weiss? Yes.
Mr. Weiss?
Mr. Weiss.
So is he owns this property?
Yep.
So are you doing this development for him?
No, ma'am.
It's his development, or
No,
he's
ma'am.
selling it to you?
It's my development, and as part of the process, we are under contract with the property.
So you're under contract to purchase the property
Yes, ma'am.
from Weiss? Okay.
So I just wanted to talk about the enhanced South Oceanside Boulevard we're doing. So some of these lovely boards. Let's grab this one. So we're creating a sense of community because there's none down here for South Oceanside Boulevard. And this is inside the transit station. So this will be right over here against the main driveway. We'll be entering our project there, and it will be an intersection that's controlled only by the traffic engineers are requesting like a flashing crosswalk, not a controlled intersection of stop signs or anything like that, because that will impede the traffic. That will impede the traffic flow. So we're bringing in a lot of materiality of the surrounding community from the houses and other portions. So a lot of what you see here is wood and other siding and glass, and a lot of glass on the street. That's typical more of a for sale product of a townhome or a other residential like a condo, but we're bringing that into the multifamily in order to increase the value and the visibility and the sense of place on the street. So I'm about to wrap it up. So we've made submittals to the city and wildlife agencies about this project, and we have discussions with them. We're having follow-up meetings with the city on discussions on the entitlement process of this, and the direction currently with the city is we would follow the California Environmental Quality Act process. And during the meetings with the city, we're discussing the appropriate affordable housing implementation, whether it be here on site or elsewhere with the city into paying into an in lieu fee. But we are committed to comply with the city's inclusionary housing requirements. We are discussing the idea internally of meeting with the 2 school sites up there and seeing if we can provide possible concessions to teachers and staff up there to help reinvigorate this area down here in this community and reduce some traffic and people going up and down there. So at this point in time, I'm going to ask Sean Kilkenny from Dudek to come up as part of my project team, and we can field some questions. And what we're looking for right now, and the city has asked us to have an authentic and meaningful discussion of the project itself with the community. So we're looking to have a discussion about the project itself, and we can take questions, and I'm really hoping we could all be respectful of each other's time today. So I want to make sure we get through people who have the time constraints that need to leave, that we can get through all that.
So
Yes,
I have-
ma'am.
Yeah,
I'm going to go with because I heard her, she had a time constraint.
Yeah, I have just a couple questions. I probably have more, but did you already get permits to remove the coastal sage that's along here? Because that's,
We are not going into the hillside.
So this
Maybe
coastal.
repeat the question so everyone in
Okay.
the back can hear as well.
The question was, did we get permits to remove the coastal sage scrub here on the hillside? Our development plan does not go to the hillside. Though what goes closest to the hillside is parking and open space and a dog park and a walking path. So we are not grading into the hillside whatsoever for our improvement.
Okay.
I'm just gonna let her go because she did say she needed it.
Was what are the plans to address the Crouch Street traffic here and the traffic that goes up through Fire Mountain on Downs? Even now, we've got an issue that
Right.
was never addressed when we developed and opened the
Walmart.
shopping center on the other side. So that's a full-on thoroughfare. I know you know that.
Yes.
But it's backed up. I mean, I can't even get out of the neighborhood. A lot of times it takes me 15 minutes to get from Avocado Road at the top, down Zabin, across and down if the train is going. I'm sitting there stopped all the way up on down. So I'm
What
just
time of
curious.
day is that? Because we were looking to come back and figure out
Well,
good times to observe it. I
that's
mean, if
whenever the train goes through is
all day
whenever
or
it
on the way
is.
on school. I have 3 kids, so I understand the school
Well,
thing.
2:00 I know is, I'm
Okay.
not down here all day, so I don't know, but I know whenever the train goes through, there's an issue. But when I go to pick her up at her school here, she doesn't go to school here.
Okay.
She goes to school up at Rancho Del Oro. And I can't get out of here. And you
Okay.
can't get out of here over here either because it's a thoroughfare. So
So-
this is really bad. I'm just
so-
curious what your plans are for here and here.
So the question is, what are we doing for the current traffic patterns that are happening right now? We are required to study the transit model and actually do tests for a level of service and a vehicle mile travel. And we actually went through and increased the impact, and the results that came back were less than significant. So that means there's nothing to mitigate. But when we open this up and create that through, it will alleviate some of the congestion.
But not if it's going that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm coming down the
Right.
hill on Downs.
Yeah.
I'm coming this way. The train is stopped. I cannot get over to
Right.
go right onto Oceanside Boulevard.
We're hoping that some people will then pass this way, but we can only study the traffic.
Well, I
patterns
go
and
that
model.
way and then- Hell,
Did you? I just wanted to make sure. She said she had a couple.
That
that
was
was
it
it?
for now.
Okay.
I think I made my point. I rest my peace for the moment.
And
Janet,
Janet.
am I correct that the dilemma that we as neighbors have in developing this property is that it could be developed 100% commercial? Am I correct?
It could be developed 100% commercial. Yeah.
And so the balance that we have as neighbors is, do we choose to have commercial or a combination thereof or residential? And is that best from a traffic standpoint? What would be the comparison of a residential community versus a commercial building for this whole site?
If you could put that in a question, I can't answer that as I'm not the traffic engineer. I understand what you're saying. The city has this zoned for over 450 housing units. We're providing 295. So just want to make that whole discussion. We did do the city did require us to do an analysis on a fiscal and market study between commercial and residential, and residential actually yields a greater fiscal impact to the community. So that's what we've been required to study.
I guess what I'm trying to say is I have to imagine that if this were commercial, that the traffic would be worse than residential.
It would be worse at that 2 o'clock hour and the other, but because we disperse at different times as a residential. If somebody has a set of questions, I want to go through them all. So I had to focus, but Sean.
No, we'll go back to the traffic. I'm not a traffic engineer, but there are various rates for traffic generation depending on the size of commercial. So the floor area ratio allowed under the city's general plan for this site, I believe, is a 1.0 FAR, which means that for every square foot of land mass, there should be a square foot of commercial. So I think that leads to around a 500,000+ square foot commercial center, which can be a big box, which has higher, more regional serving kind of traffic generation rates. Now that hasn't happened here, so that's not to say that would happen necessarily. There has to obviously be the market demand for it, but that could happen under the existing zoning. But it could also be a smaller regional or more neighborhood serving commercial. What API is proposing is a much smaller, more neighborhood serving commercial center with 3,000 square feet. And the intent there is to try to alleviate some of the other traffic pressure, where instead of having to get in the car and drive across the street to go get coffee or to go get a haircut, you can actually walk to a shop down here. That's part of the idea of being co-located with the transit station, is to try to encourage that more multimodal. Now, we look across and we see that most of the cars parked over there are probably our cars, but part of the process of redeveloping kind of transit stations and encouraging that walking or the other multimodal commute transportation choices is having an active streetscape to make people feel safe, like they can use it.
I just want to circle back on to this. So in looking at the market and fiscal impact study, that analyzed the commercial aspect of the development program, and there isn't a demand for commercial office space or industrial space in the region right now. So that is what the analysis said. And then on the transit one specifically, in an urban planning setting, the idea is to have two developments that offset, that have different traffic patterns. So office and residential are offsetting traffic patterns. So this would be a better traffic pattern in the regional planning concept than two offices, because that would just increase that traffic pattern.
We've just lived here since the 1960s, and what we have been presented with before has been high density commercial potential for this property. And that's the dilemma that we've had over the years. And so again, well, it's higher density apartment use, which isn't necessarily attractive. In the balance of the choices, it just appears as though we do better with residential than we would with commercial. So that's just my comment.
Yeah.
And what is your realistic, when is this actually going to happen?
2023, 2024.
Yes, thank you. I see you put a lot of work into this, and I can understand how you are passionate about this. But right now, we have some traffic issues. In the morning, people use Oceanside Boulevard. Going from Oceanside Boulevard at 78 in this way, they cut through Fire Mountain, up Island, Downs, Avocado, right down to 78 in this way. And the traffic patterns early in the morning for people running through this area, and late in the afternoon, and when the schools go out. So we have three time zones that are really heavily impacted. And when I see 295 cars coming and going every day, and they're going to go in.
It'll be more
Twice
than
as
that.
many,
It'll
three
be more
times
than
as
that.
many.
Yeah.
We'll have more than
Can you
that.
repeat the question? I don't think anybody back here.
I don't know when they
Traffic
do this.
issues.
It was the recognition, the observation about there's existing AM kind of after school and then PM bypass traffic that comes off of Oceanside Boulevard and goes up and over Crouch and then down on the other side of Fire Mountain. So yeah, to 78. Understood.
So when do they do the traffic study? What time of day? They do it at 10 o'clock in the morning.
So they
there's
put
no
down
cars?
tubes. Maybe you've seen these on the street.
It's
before.
an all-day thing for an extended period of time.
Well, I've never
Don't know
seen-
the duration.
When did they do that?
I've never seen those markers out.
Me either.
No, those.
I haven't seen
Yeah,
him.
no, it's
No, I
If
We
you
need
write
a
that,
copy
if
of
you write that in a comment, obviously we're not going to be able to tell you the exact time and date that occurred. But what we do rely on, and we're required to rely on, is the San Diego regional government and their model. So we've used the model as required, and that model then projects traffic distribution over 2035 right now and 2050. So we're working within that parameter. So that's what we are required to work on.
And you said that they came back insignificant. Is that, what does insignificant mean as far as traffic goes? Sorry, I'm asking another question out of turn. But
What does insignificant
because
mean as
that's
far as traffic?
Okay, so yeah, so in CEQA parlance, less than significant means that it's below a threshold that's been adopted by the lead agency, in this case the City of Oceanside, as a condition that would have a significant effect. And typically dealing with traffic, I'm going to tell you all the background on this, and then I'm going to tell you that that's no longer used in CEQA. But in traffic parlance, it usually means that if you have a significant delay, and it depends on your level of road classification, because a significant delay on a 25-mile-an-hour neighborhood street is a lot different than a delay on a 6-lane prime arterial.
this is 35 though, by the way.
No, understood. Just for the example.
And they're talking
He
about
likes to give
moving
a
it
lot
to
of
40.
background.
Yeah, this is so
Just
so
to
it
show-
depends. There's gradations of how much delay is kind of acceptable before it turned into an impact. And that was the way that CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, traditionally analyzed a traffic study. And if your project contributed to a delay, then you were found to have a significant effect. And then you required mitigation, like traffic signals or widening roads, or traffic signal improvements. So sometimes you can signalize, you can line up, and if you ever go through like getting a bunch of green lights in a row, we can modify signal time. So that's the way the traffic impacts were traditionally analyzed. The state of California, in an effort to combat greenhouse gas emissions and climate change, said we're no longer going to be interested in doing that, what's called a level of service study. We're instead going to require that projects analyze their vehicle miles traveled, and the more vehicle miles that a project has associated with it, the more of an impact it would have in traffic, because that means that there were more car miles being traveled, and the state wants to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So that's now VMT, which you'll hear. Local agencies, though, still require this traditional level of service analysis, because instead of being impacts and mitigation, we now call it like effects. So to understand if a project has an effect, and if there's any kind of project design improvements that would mitigate or reduce those effects. Again, not the traffic engineer, but have read the traffic kind of results, and what they say is that some of the effects of the project of the overall traffic situation are reduced when South Oceanside Boulevard from Crouch Street connects through over to the existing dead end over here. It allows for some of that pressure to be alleviated at the intersection. I know you're saying, I know, because yeah. So that's
Okay,
kind of the
I
way.
want to stop you right there because I own that house right there, and I watch every day. I watch all on Skylark and all on Down Street, and it's all backed up for cars, like completely. It's insane.
I think what she's referring to, it's true. It's a transient situation. Like most of the time, there's no traffic there.
Yeah.
So if you do an averaging, it looks like no problem. But there's certain times of the day where they're backed up like 20 cars.
The traffic studies do the peak hours, and they do analyze it on an hour.
Can I ask one question? Has any re-engineering of that intersection been incorporated in your plans to develop?
Define the intersection, because that's like 4 intersections happening right there.
Downs and
Downs.
Skylark and
No.
Crouch and Skylark.
No, it has not.
Okay, I
I
think
didn't
that's.
get an answer on whether there was planning for a signal of any kind.
No signal.
No traffic
No.
signals anywhere. Stop
Again,
signs?
that goes to the less than
So it was
significant.
stop signs, is that
No,
right?
there's not a controlled intersection.
So here, well, what are you planning on putting here? A 4-way stop?
No,
3-way stop?
no.
Just what's there.
As it exists right there, right now.
So that's what I'm saying. So it would be a stop sign for this new street.
Yes,
And
as
this-
it exists, yes.
Okay, so the same situation on this side that we have on that side is a stop sign, and when the train comes through, then nobody can go.
Check it out, right?
Right.
You're talking about the Skylark making the right turn.
I heard it, and I understand several of you had the same comment. We can go talk to the city. The issue at hand, not a traffic engineer, I'll keep saying it, or a civil engineer, but when you have too many streets too close together, you can't put in a control. It's usually like 150 to 175 feet before you could have control points. I'm not a traffic engineer, but that's my recollection. So the problem is that the way it all aligns right now, and we could talk to the city about that.
We have a lot of public comment cards in the back too,
Yeah.
so it seems like a reoccurring.
It would be so helpful for our discussion with the city if you guys can write this down, because somebody's recording, so maybe they'll share that with us. But we're doing our best to take the notes down, and multiple people are talking at the same time. So,
Is there any questions back here? Yep.
comments cards would be great. I'm gonna go back with this gentleman because, yes, sir.
I want to explain first. I was assistant city engineer for the city of San Juan Capistrano for 27 years. If we pulled off a meeting like this, I would have been fired immediately. First of all, we over-notified. Our council didn't want people walking into a meeting and going, why didn't I hear about this? We live on Down Street opposite Up Circle. I didn't hear about this
I didn't hear
meeting.
about it.
I heard about it through a friend who lives up here in St. Malo. Our neighbors didn't hear about it. They're gone on holiday vacations, okay? So they couldn't attend. You held this thing on Thanksgiving week, on Tuesday morning, not in the evening in the city
Hall,
meeting,
yeah.
where it should have been held.
At
You
city
have a much
council
larger crowd.
at city council chambers.
Yeah.
This is where we always held them in San Juan
I totally
Capistrano.
understand. I
I
heard
know.
a couple of your points, and I'll let
It's
you
not
finish.
totally your fault. It's
No.
a large part. It's the city's fault. You're talking about the intersection down here. It's poorly planned. Well, that was all the city's fault. The city built a high school across the street from the largest retirement complex in North County. Great planning, right?
Right.
This city has been screwed up from the
Oh,
beginning.
cities.
So now we're stuck with this. When we bought the house in 2006, I went to the city, and one of the questions I asked, what's going on down there? Oh, that's going to be professional buildings. So I wasn't so concerned about it because they don't generate a hell of a lot of traffic, and it's usually under certain hours. I wasn't told it was going to become a housing unit, okay? I wasn't told a lot of things about what was going on. And I knew there was a lot of traffic on Downs because I used it. I lived on Pacific Street, and I went to the gym over 24 hours. So I knew there was a lot of traffic on the street. But it was reasonable, and it's gotten nothing but worse. And this isn't going to help it a whole lot, because these folks are going to go to Walmart. They're not going to shop over here at Whole Foods.
Yep.
They can't afford it. So it's just going to increase that traffic. And as far as the design goes, I wouldn't be comfortable living in that. It looks like an office to me. It doesn't look like housing. And it doesn't blend in with what's up on Fire Mountain at all. They could have added some sort of design to it that looks a little more home-friendly.
things, right? Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that I have a problem with this. The only thing I don't have a problem with it is it's affordable housing, which this town needs desperately. So we've got a lot of problems with this, and trying to hide it in a meeting like this, I don't appreciate at all. I've worked with developers for 27 years, and I could tell the ones that were trying to sneak in the development because they didn't want anybody to know what was going on. And that's what I'm seeing here, is I never got a notice. We never got a notice about the general plan change either.
I'm going to address a couple of your points, and I would appreciate if you could write some of that down.
The city wants to weigh in too.
William, good morning.
Good morning.
Got a couple minutes for me?
Come on in, both of you.
Thank you.
Oh, you don't want to come up?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Russ Cunningham with the city's planning division. I'm here with my colleague Stephanie. She is our project manager. I want to clarify a couple of issues. I want to offer a little bit of big picture perspective and let you know that staff is very available to further discuss the project should you have additional questions.
Louder.
Thank you, Haley.
She makes me
Speak
speak
up a
up. You
little
guys
bit.
speak up.
Gotcha. So, first point I want to make is that Stephanie and I are available to address questions. We have been responsive to every public inquiry we have received, contrary to what you may have heard, William, directing folks to project information that is available online. So you have the applicant as a resource to learn more about the project. You have city staff as a resource to learn more about the project. I'm going to tell you this. The city strongly supports transit-oriented development at this location, leveraging this resource that the Sprinter provides. We would like to see more density on this site. This is not a particularly dense project. It is well below the current density allowance under the commercial zoning. With respect to the commercial zoning, the city has allowed residential and commercial districts for decades. Mixed use has always been permissible in commercial districts. So that's not changed, and there is not a zone change or general plan change associated with this project. With respect to notification, the state of California requires that cities send out notice of public hearing to a 300-foot radius minimum. So think about what a 300-foot radius would be here. This is what the state of California requires. We require 5 times that notification radius, a 1,500-foot radius around this site. We require a notice of application so people know about these projects on the front end and not 10 days before they go to public hearings. Many cities do not require these kinds of events, do not have expectations of developers that they will host these kinds of events. We do have that expectation, and I appreciate the project advocates putting this together. With respect to this happening over Thanksgiving weekend, that may be perhaps the not best timing, but again, we're available to continue to respond to questions going forward. And the applicant, I think, conveyed in the correspondence that folks who didn't make it here today have that contact information and can reach out to both the applicant and to city staff for more information. So perspective is important. Big picture is important. Recognizing what's happening in this region, recognizing the severe housing crisis that the state, the region, and the city of Oceanside is facing. And I appreciate you, sir, mentioning just how desperately we are in need of expanding the city's housing inventory. We, again, would like to see more units on this site.
This is
classic transit-oriented development.
Because I had heard that it's not low income. Is it low income housing?
Is it Section 8?
It's not low income. That's what I thought.
The proposal we have now is market rate housing. We have an option. We have an inclusionary housing ordinance that requires that a certain percentage of housing be available to lower income households, but that requirement can be met through what's called an in lieu fee, where they pay a per unit fee to the city that we can leverage. We can leverage that funding to do projects, for example, like the Mission Cove project in Mission Avenue. And as of now, that's the approach. As staff understands it.
We're working with staff to, we will comply.
Now, Section 8 is very different, right? That's a federal government program that subsidizes rent for the most part in existing housing. So that's not really.
But
developments don't come in as Section 8.
Part of this could become Section 8. Potentially.
I will stand here, Russ, and say that that's not my company's development type. We are working with the city on what the low-income housing and inclusionary housing component is. Section 8 is something that we have not discussed. I don't intend for that, but I want to make, and just to key off something that Russ said, I want to make clear, we are open for additional meetings. I chose today because I felt it was important to have it on site, and I didn't know if there was a better time to have it on site where I could sit here and explain that That pole right there is pretty much the back edge of the building where the blue tape is. Our height is 50 feet. The height of the hill there is 150 feet. Can you tell the mass? I mean, we can't do that in a Zoom meeting. We can't do that in city council. We're open to more meetings, but I don't know a way to better communicate what's happening here on the site, which is what we're trying to modify and make better. I can't do that in a city council meeting, but if you guys email me, what?
You can do it on a Saturday when people are working.
We're all retired.
Everybody here is retired.
Totally understand. If you guys emailed me, the response you got back was, I live in North County. I can accommodate a meeting to your schedule, which could be a weekend.
Yeah.
I'm just down in Leucadia.
Well,
I can do that, but
Esther Sanchez responded to me and said that she wasn't aware of this meeting and that she was going to have the city manager be in touch with me to ensure that we don't have meetings on a holiday week, that's unacceptable. So I'm just, she's the mayor.
We got that email.
Yeah, I know. We responded
I understand.
to it, but she responded to me and said it was unacceptable.
I mean, we want to go through questions, and I really appreciate staff being here, so I appreciate you guys being here. So let's crank through some of the questions, and I just want to make it clear that if you guys want to set up a separate meeting, we will work with staff to set up a separate meeting that would be virtual. I don't know if we do city council chambers, but I want to make sure that you guys don't think this is the stopping point for this. But I'm going to go with the San Diego hat in the back.
Are we able to set a time for
Wait,
meeting?
hold on. Right. That is not my plan. That is not my development plan. That is not what the inclusionary housing discussion with the city is.
So just to clarify, Section 8 and inclusionary housing and affordable housing are two separate things.
Well, question.
Yes,
You
sir.
defined it as apartment homes. Are these all rentals or
They're
leases?
all rentals. It's all rentals.
There's
All
nobody
rentals.
buying a condo.
Nobody's buying apartment homes. So there's studio,
okay.
1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. In our program right now, we're finding a lot of people that don't want to own anything, and we're finding a
They
lot
can't.
of people.
This
Well,
day
that's
and
it.
age, they
Well,
can't afford
I
it.
mean, some of the people renting some of our things have cars that are worth more than my home, which is still demographically mind-boggling to me. So
Okay.
we call them apartment homes because we're creating this massive community. These aren't the apartments I lived in when I went to college. I mean, these are heavily amenitized apartments, pools, gyms, dog parks, things that I never had. Oh, are you done? I want to finish.
No, just a couple more questions, real quick. Your South Oceanside Street here.
Yes, ma'am.
Boulevard,
Yes, sir. Sorry.
It's going to be 2 lane. Is that correct?
1 lane in each direction
One
with the
lane each
widened side. We're working with the city on what the shadows happen because we can't build up against the creek. We negotiated with the wildlife agencies on how far back we can move from the creek, and we are revegetating the upland section of that creek as part of the Oceanside, the visioning plan.
So
as part of that.
There are no changes going to be made to Crouch. No changes going to be made to Oceanside Boulevard. And this is just a 2-lane little road that's going to connect all this development to that end, to Crouch, and over here to State Street, right?
All the way out to the town and country, yes.
Yeah, well, it'll go through there.
Yeah.
But you got a stoplight right over here with
There's a couple even to
yeah,
exit out. Yeah.
which is State Street. But we're making no changes at all to Oceanside Boulevard, right? Main Oceanside.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, I'm done.
You're hopefully going to share this recording with each other.
Yeah.
Well,
She's been very patient.
yes, yes.
Claire, will you please clarify the probability of having commercial? Is it like the box apartments that Carlsbad's putting up where people live above commercial?
All right, we have 2 commercial corners where the driveway comes out. The driveway will go into the property, and there'll be 2 commercial corners flanking that. The rest of that is residential along the front.
Okay.
So it's residential on the street, but on the corners of the main drive are 2 retail anchors, you know, a coffee shop.
Right. So my concern is Oceanside hasn't changed in terms of vacancies. Even before COVID, we have malls here and there that have empty.
Yeah.
Because Oceanside is not the destination to go to restaurants and retail. even Carlsbad Mall right now there's so many empty buildings. And with the transient population that we have, and we have empty buildings, I don't know if that's something that's been addressed. Like we have really poor people that pick businesses that want to rent building spaces. They don't fit in Oceanside and they go out of business so fast. Who's in deciding which businesses can go in?
I'm the project planner with the City of Oceanside. My name is Stephanie. So one of the key things with being able to increase the commercial viability of Oceanside Boulevard is bringing more people here. So that's one of the kind of the goals, is increase the population that lives here in order to be able to make those businesses viable and successful.
I'm sorry, but I've lived here for over 40 years, and bringing more people to Oceanside Boulevard, I can't even drive from the 5 to Crouch Street without seeing like 5 homeless people that are half naked, and it's insane.
Yeah, so that
Like, are you seriously saying that we need more people?
For certain types of businesses, yes, they do have a minimum service population that is needed in order to make certain types of businesses successful. So that is grocery stores. When new grocery stores are coming into cities, they do.
But no, but it's insane.
And also,
even at the last council forum, like literally, the owner of Fraser Farms went and said that how all the homeless people are encountering their store. Like, this is insane.
Yeah, so 2 points to that. So increased housing will address some of that homeless issue, increasing the housing inventory. Another thing too is with the population that we're hoping that will live here, they will not see as many car trips. That's one of the important things about this type of transit-oriented development, is that not everybody that lives here is going to own a vehicle or be using their vehicle for every type of trip, because you do have the transit center. We are making it more walkable, so even if they are taking trips to these commercial areas, they're not going to be vehicle trips and putting more vehicles on these streets. It's going to be other types, walking, bicycle, other modals.
I would never walk on Oceanside Boulevard.
Never.
Ever.
So the way the retail is going, and when you see things not doing well, is the retail is going to be experiential. So it's not buying socks, but it's having the experience. So the retail we hopefully have here is some type of serving to the community, maybe a restaurant or a coffee shop, but it's also activated by the transit. So it's for the community. It's not a big box. It's not that kind of concept. It's a smaller kind of concept. And if you guys have any idea of what you'd like, we'd love to get that going. And if you want to, please email us and tell us what kind of commercial serving would you like. Yes, ma'am.
So you are intending on curating the mixed use, the commercial spaces. You are planning.
It will all be our development, and we will not be at this point in time, and we don't usually do it. It's too complicated. The condo map out the retail component of a mixed use. It will be Ocean Creek's property, so we will be curating that. Yes.
So often, mixed use is great, but you don't have the right businesses in there to really cater to the project itself or the neighborhood. And the last thing we need is more empty commercials.
Nothing against my fellow planners or anything like that, but when the mixed use kind of doesn't do so well is when it's in a for sale product and you're expecting the person living above the unit to be operating that lower unit that is their property. That live work concept doesn't exist in a for rent as much. It doesn't, but it exists in the for sale product, and that's a lot where you see a lot of empty storefronts. Yes, ma'am.
Go back to the parking. How many parking spaces?
478.
Okay, so you figure if each unit has 2 cars, that's almost 600 cars.
We have 444 bedrooms.
And
so each unit shouldn't have each unit.
So just real quick, so on the unit split, I understand the question. If they're actually, it's weighted, and just gonna walk into Williams here. So the units are weighted more so for 1 bedrooms. So I think that the mix is 151 bedrooms. bedrooms, and then 125 two bedrooms, 12 three bedrooms, and 4 studios. And that's probably not exactly right on the math, but you can check. It's close enough. So it's overweighted to 1 bedrooms.
So
But
are you
understand
assuming there's only 1 person in the bed? There
No.
might be 2.
No. But
Or 3.
no, I understand the point. But it's not. They're not all 2 or 3 bedrooms. Where you more often expect to have multiple vehicles, and it is a lifestyle choice to live next to a transit station. Although you're right, there could be 2 cars in some units. There could be no cars in some units.
Well, and for those of us that live on Downs and Ivy, which are the 2 main streets that people are going to drive through here, if you take an overall map and look at this whole area of Fire Mountain, which goes Oceanside to El Camino to the 78 to basically the 5. How many houses do we have in there? I've asked this question before for you, Russ. I'm Candy Johnson. How many houses do we have in here? Do these people understand that main thoroughfare, there's going to be 1,000 cars more per day as a result of this project? That is unacceptable. I mean, right now, I live in an area where to get into my driveway, there's a blind curve behind me. We've already had several accidents, and I've only lived there 6 years. So
Candy?
I can't wait for this frickin' project to be built.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
I want to acknowledge that
And I have one more comment. Sorry, Russ. There are very limited ingress and egresses to this particular neighborhood. I think there's 5 I counted. But I mean, when you look at that, the people cut through here all the time. We're not even supposed to have big trucks through here. I see
All the time.
I see the Walmart trucks coming through right next to my house. I'm like, what the hell? This is not a thoroughfare. So, I mean, how are they going to limit it? What are we going to do when all these people start coming through? And it's going to add to the noise and the safety factors for us.
Candy, 2 things. I want to acknowledge that.
Can you speak up or come forward?
Under the tent, yeah.
There's a wind.
I want to acknowledge that, in fact, Downs, other streets that move north-south through Fire Mountain are pass-through streets, that you are experiencing pass-through traffic. There's no denying that.
Right.
And there are things that we can look at to calm traffic, to discourage it as a thoroughfare, and also create some additional traffic safety by slowing.
Oh, those little,
down.
the circles.
Like where it
Roundabout
says 15 miles
speed
an hour
bumps.
down on the speed bumps on Downs, and the cars behind me are honking and flipping me off because I'm going the speed limit? I'm serious. I'm serious now. That happens now.
Understood.
I've called
So,
Matt in traffic, I don't know how many times, just to try to see if we can get patrolling here for all the stop sign running. And it never happens because they're short-staffed.
And so that's my second point is Steffi and I will reach out to public safety, see what we can do to monitor conditions on these pass-through streets. Look at volume, look at speeds, look at the type of traffic. So we shouldn't be seeing large vehicles using these streets. That shouldn't be happening. Whether that's against our traffic code or not, I can't say, but there's a chance that it may be, and if that's the case, that's something we can enforce against. So that's something we'll look into.
My family made a huge mistake back in the 40s when they gave an easement through the Down Street to the city.
This is Patsy Downs, by the way, in case nobody knew. This is Miss Patsy Downs.
Woo!
It's Patsy's
I have a question. Is this development on the hook for any funds to provide any kind of traffic control on Downs? When I called about having speed bumps installed, I was told the city didn't have the money to do it.
Yes, and
All traffic calming, I was told, is stopped right now.
and you're absolutely right.
There's no budget for that.
That's been the message, and I know how frustrating that is. And I will say, we have been reaching out for the better part of 2 years on the city's general plan update. And what we've heard again and again is this concern about pass-through traffic, about high-speed traffic in neighborhoods. That's clearly a priority of the Oceanside community from one end to the other. So we're going to pursue goals and policies that give us the resources to hopefully reestablish traffic calming as a program.
Right.
in Oceanside, because that's what we're hearing from the community as a real priority.
Part of it
But
you
I
can do through
attended a council
development
meeting where they were
agreements.
talking about raising the speed limit on Downs to 40 because that's what the speed that the travelers drive.
Yeah, sometimes
And
there's
on
that
Fire
challenge.
Mountain at 35, and that was just maybe
Was that
a
just
year
on
ago.
this section, though?
Excuse me?
Was that just on this section where they have those speeds?
No,
Oh,
it's
I'm sorry,
Downs, right
Downs,
over
not
here.
Downs,
Downs
but
is
Downs.
on over.
So they're talking about 40 miles an hour instead of 35 because that's what the travelers drive,
Yeah.
is that speed limit.
Yeah.
And they squashed it for now because we all raised our hands at the city council meeting and said you can't raise a residential street Patsy down the street to 40 miles an hour.
It's kind of the It's kind of the delicate balance because you want to have the throughput. You want the cars to move through so you don't have the congestion, but you also want to calm it so that you have safe conditions. So there may be a section where it's appropriate to maintain the higher speed where you don't have adjacent residential or a lot of pedestrian traffic, and areas where
That's part of the problem.
I live on Ivy, right where you go from Downs and you go over to Avocado. People come around that so fast. I have a dog. My neighbors have little kids. The other neighbors have little kids. My other neighbor has 5 animals. And it's like, this is ridiculous how fast those cars go by there.
And I do
we're
appreciate
putting
you
Canyon
speaking
Cove
to.
in, by the way. And that's going to just add more cars to there.
I'm sorry.
Canyon Cove, when you put those 5 houses back in that canyon, I don't know how those people will ever get out of their place because it's a blind curve.
You're talking about Ivy? Yeah, that's a 3-unit subdivision now. It's down to 3 actually. Yeah, very simple. So I just want to make the point that these existing conditions are important and they're worth a look. And Stephanie and I will reach out to our colleagues.
You know, one thing, I think this project, you know, William, I have to say, I have a fairly positive feeling towards it. I just live up at the top of the hill. I think it could be a nice project if it's done with quality and done right. The road going through here might help some of the traffic because people can get directly to the freeway, but I don't think it's going to help much unless that intersection gets re-engineered down there. And are you the person, Russ, to talk to have the city, and I don't think just putting a light there or whatever is going to take. I think we might maybe need to add some turn lanes or something. I don't know.
It's already dangerous.
Yeah. It needs, with this street going through, to make best use of that, and you know, also curb the extra traffic. You know, help deal with the extra traffic. That Crouch Street intersection with Downs and South Oceanside Boulevard, as it will be, really needs to be rethought. Are you the person to talk to about that?
That would be our traffic engineer, but I am the person to talk to about bigger picture transportation issues. But as far as a discrete issue here at this corner, as William observed, there's just not enough distance between that intersection and the signalized intersection for this to work as a signalized intersection.
Yeah, I don't think a signal is the answer.
I don't think a signal is the answer either, but a stop sign. The problem is cars keep coming down
the hill.
Down the hill, and then the cars can't get out on the other street.
Yeah.
But a stop sign would allow people to move. Sure. And it wouldn't back up as much. with a
Well,
stop
also,
sign.
I agree with you on that. That's very true. And not that I want a stop sign. I come down Crouch, but I feel sorry for everybody on Downs that's stuck there.
Yeah,
I think
I've
you're right.
taken to actually going out of my way and coming down.
But opening this,
because I know it's going to be backed up at 5 o'clock.
opening this street up, which is absolutely necessary to do.
Yeah.
If you don't have a turn lane or something there, it's, you know, it'll still be, if it's just one lane that people can't get around, there needs people who are turning left have to be able to turn left without having a backup of people the other way. I think a little bit of widening of Crouch at that spot might be necessary or something like that, and I don't know if that if that could be done.
It's a great thought. It's not warranted by the traffic analysis that's been conducted, but again, we have some existing conditions that I'm hearing about that I think we need to look into. And one of them may be some additional stop control here, which isn't going to be the burden of this on this project, but it could be something that the city concludes is
Well,
necessary.
the reason, and not to burden you, William, because I think you have a nice project. You know, we all wish it could be something different, I guess. But what you're doing, I think, is great. You know, really. But it is going to impact that intersection. I mean, like, this is the time, especially if it needs a little bit more land to maybe, you know, widen it right in that area to open up some options. And I think to characterize it as kind of another problem that's separate from the project, I think is.
We will discuss that. I see what you're saying. There's an opportunity here.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I have a question.
He's had his hand up for a long time.
Yeah. And forgive me if this is a repeat, but have you considered doing something, maybe with facades or something, to just get away from this huge?
Yeah.
Looks like a state prison. Is there any way you can soften that?
That's a great question. What this isn't showing is that there's actually articulation on the front that's popping out some of the elements and the dark areas of the shadow. Unfortunately, I would like to have mitigated it more with plantings to increase that streetscape, but public safety trumps most things. Public safety being the fire department needing ladder access to the windows and frontages of the buildings. So that is a negotiation between us and the fire department on where they have their access points to the front of the building. But this is the articulation, the popping out in the front. It will play a lot better when it's built as opposed to this.
I think he's saying, does it have to be a flat top?
I do not have a model. As part of this, we will during the CEQA process. We'll have better renderings. So we are working with the city when we get to that point about what renderings and visualization they're looking for. Did you have something?
I do.
100 units?
Yes.
It's supposed to be over 450, and we're at 295.
No, but because of the impact of the traffic.
Can you talk to Tom and have us sell us the land for cheaper? Can you talk to Tom Weiss and have him sell it to us for cheaper? I'm joking, man. I was saying if you could talk to Tom Weiss and sell us the land cheaper, we would. I'm sorry, that was probably wrong. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I know that Weiss owns this part and that part over on the other side and the upper lot.
And that part. All
And
four.
Are you planning to develop all 3 parcels or just this one?
There are four parcels, and we are only trying to develop these 2 here as part of this multi-family apartment home development.
And do you have plans on developing the top
We
part?
have no other plans at this time for that.
A
lot of that is open space and habitat conservation.
There's a conservation easement that's going to be placed on most of this hillside, and that's going to be coastal sage, and it's going to be held there.
No, I know that, but there's still some
flat.
Yeah,
Flat at the top.
exactly.
So
That can be developed.
The city of Oceanside, we have a hillside development requirement, so over a certain slope percentage, you're not allowed to develop. Most of this is over that slope percentage. So it could not be developed as residential, even if it was zoned something else or if it didn't have coastal safety.
My fellow Hawaiian shirt.
Oh, thank you. Part of what we're talking about is happening everywhere too. Over in Carlsbad, I'm just thinking there's 50 places. There's one over there where everybody comes home at night and they all park, and they start parking up the hill. They park up the hills in every direction. Go straight out Oceanside Blvd, cross what is it out there? You cross where the Arco station is. There's all those new apartments. They look really nice. At 5 o'clock, that's jammed. The street's jammed. The people with the residential units don't have any parking. People up the side streets don't have any parking. That's the picture. This down here, I'm looking at this, and this is just happening, and I'm looking at it. I'm looking where the street is, right there, and I'm looking at the front, and there's about 10 or 15 cars sitting there. We're talking about 300 or 400 cars, 500, 600, let's pick a number, 400 cars. That's based on how many people are living in these apartments. On those apartments out there, 3, 4, and 5 people live in the
Mhm.
same apartments. It's 2, 3, 4, 5 cars.
Right.
So,
They're not. No. One bedroom in. One of my daughters lives up in the Silicon Valley. A bedroom up there is a good deal for $250 a week. Okay, $1,000 a month. One bedroom. I don't know what it is here or San Diego or whatever. There's going to be, and I don't know if any of this anything legally can be done about taking and I don't know what the correct word is here. I'm getting